They said I died. They said I was gay. They said Jay-Z was my dad.
If there's one thing 50 Cent has taught all of us this year, it's that we are just not hating hard enough. Diddy definitely regrets sleeping with 50's baby mama because 50 has been on Diddy's neck for years, and it doesn't look like he's taking his foot off anytime soon. Word on the street is that he'll be releasing part 2 of his Netflix documentary, and this one is going to allegedly include exclusive footage of all the male celebrities that got victimized by Diddy. And allegedly, Bryshere Gray is one of them, and 50 will expose everything Diddy and Will Smith allegedly did to him. As most of y'all know, 50 Cent finally released his highly anticipated documentary about Diddy, and this documentary has everyone giving their opinions. Some people are here for it, and some went off on 50, claiming he only did this to get back at Diddy for sleeping with his baby mama Daphne Joy. The point is, this documentary gave a lot of Diddy's victims, especially the men he allegedly assaulted, a chance to finally tell us what happened to them. The first man to appear in the documentary with an assault allegation was music producer Lil Rod. Most of y'all have probably already heard of him because he had sued Diddy for assault, and that case is yet to go to trial. In the documentary, he gave way more details about what Diddy did to him. He said Diddy invited him to Miami to produce his Love album. But when he got there, Diddy was only interested in partying and non-stop freak-offs. He said sometimes he would wake up after these parties with a woman in the bed, and sometimes it would be Diddy lying next to him with barely any clothes on. The worst part is he would feel sore in his back area every single time. At the time, he didn't understand why he would wake up with barely any memory and unbearable pain. But after years of processing it, he realized Diddy was allegedly drugging him and having his way with him when he was out of it. Even after all the assaults, Lil Rod still stayed with Diddy for a couple more months. I'm not going to question this man because he's the victim, but other people weren't so nice. They said he stayed because he enjoyed it and wanted the life that comes with being associated with Diddy. Now, before we get into the other victims, a lot of people asked 50 Cent to do part 2 and include Bryshere Gray because Diddy had a hand in Bryshere's decline. It's been rumored for a while that Bryshere is one of Diddy's victims. This rumor was started by Jaguar Wright, and she has exposed multiple receipts to prove it. Apparently, Bryshere was introduced to Diddy and Will Smith by his manager Charlie Mack for a mentorship. Diddy was supposed to help Bryshere with his music career, while Will helped him with acting. But according to Jaguar, they were allegedly more interested in using him for freak-offs than actually mentoring him. What's even crazier is that Terrence Howard, Bryshere's co-star on Empire, came out to seemingly confirm what Jaguar said in a cryptic interview. He talked about men losing their man card and never getting it back. Terrence said when you lose your man card, you don't get that back, and a man doesn't take it, a man gives it. He said you come into this world as a man one time, and if you give up that right for fear of being hurt or wanting to gain something, he's never seen somebody recover from it. He also said that was all the people that went to the puffy parties thinking there would never be consequences. That statement had everyone convinced he was talking about Bryshere. As if things couldn't get messier, Jaguar came back and gave even more details about what Diddy and Will allegedly put Bryshere through. This time, she dragged Bryshere's mama Andrea Mayberry into it, claiming Andrea knew what was being done to her son but allowed it because she was getting paid. Jaguar went off on Andrea and said Andrea knew Bryshere had been assaulted and she knew what Will did to him. But because Charlie Mack had promised her all kinds of things, Andrea just pretended to be a broken-down single mom who raised a superstar. Jaguar claimed Andrea wasn't nothing but a drug dealer's woman who went from dealer to dealer and snitched on whoever she needed to until she got to the bigger bag. Jaguar also revealed that after Cassie's lawsuit against Diddy, Bryshere was also getting ready to sue Diddy by filing a $50 million lawsuit against him and Will Smith for what they allegedly did to him. But Diddy got word of it and allegedly made him drop it before it could see the light of day and become public. People believe this is the lawsuit that was revealed by a blind item that read, "I suspect the soon-to-step-forward male victim of assault by this A-list mogul will not be the last man to do so," and it was clearly referring to Diddy and the men he allegedly victimized. The fact that Bryshere was willing to file a $50 million lawsuit says a lot about how serious whatever happened to him actually was. Because you don't just throw around numbers like that unless something really traumatic went down that destroyed your life. Once all this mess resurfaced online, people started going off on 50 Cent for not including Bryshere in the first documentary that just came out. They said Bryshere has been constantly overlooked in this entire Diddy case, and it's about time someone takes him seriously and gives him a platform to tell his story without being silenced. The comments were flooded with people demanding that 50 do a part 2 and make sure Bryshere is front and center this time so his voice can finally be heard. They said Bryshere has no business doing what he's doing now just to earn enough money to survive and pay his bills. But thanks to Diddy and Will allegedly destroying his career and his mental health, that's his life now, and he can't escape it no matter how hard he tries to move forward. In fact, after the documentary came out on Netflix, a video went viral of Bryshere crying after someone called the police to his house, claiming he was trying to self-harm and hurt himself. Apparently, he got triggered by the documentary and the renewed attention on his situation and all the trauma it brought back, and someone made a false report that he was trying to do something to himself. In the video, Bryshere is visibly upset and emotional, telling the police that someone made a lie and falsely claimed that he tried to hurt himself. He kept saying he takes pictures with people every single day and doesn't know who would do this to him or make such accusations. The police told him that they had multiple calls about him, and his office had talked to them saying he came in acting erratic. They said for somebody that's supposedly wanting to hurt themselves, the reports were concerning enough that they had to do a wellness check. Bryshere looked completely broken in that video, and people felt terrible for him because it was clear that he's still dealing with the trauma of whatever happened to him all those years ago. The fact that the documentary brought all of this back up and pushed him to that emotional breaking point shows just how deep the damage goes. This isn't just some rumor or speculation anymore. This is a man's life that got completely derailed, and people want answers about who's responsible and why nobody stepped in to help him when it mattered most. Now, going back to the documentary that already came out, 50 Cent also brought in some of Diddy's female victims, including Aubrey O'Day from Danity Kane. Aubrey has been very vocal about her experience with Diddy way before he was exposed, so no one was surprised that she made an appearance in the documentary. However, just like Lil Rod, she gave some new information that had everyone absolutely shook. She said she read an affidavit of a witness who claimed that they walked in on Diddy allegedly assaulting her while she was unconscious back in 2005. Aubrey said she had no memory of this incident. However, the witness claims she is 100% sure it was Aubrey she saw. Aubrey also exposed inappropriate emails that Diddy sent her when she was still under 18 years old. The content of these emails was extremely disturbing, and the fact that he was sending these to someone who wasn't even legal yet makes it so much worse and shows a clear pattern of predatory behavior. Towards the end of the documentary, Aubrey gets very emotional talking about how she was contacted by a lawyer representing somebody who was filing a lawsuit against Diddy. Whoever this person was wrote an affidavit claiming that they witnessed something back in 2005 involving Aubrey being assaulted while she was unconscious. The fact that there were witnesses to these incidents and nobody said anything for years is what has people so angry. How many people knew what was happening and just stayed silent because Diddy had too much power and influence? Jaguar Wright has been saying for years that both Will and Diddy do inappropriate things in their houses, and that young men have left their houses screaming to get away from them during these so-called mentorship programs. She specifically mentioned that Meek Mill and Bryshere Gray both left screaming, and she said the only one that stayed was August Alsina because he needed the money. The fact that Jaguar is naming specific names makes her claims harder to dismiss as conspiracy theories. She's been consistent for years, long before any of this came out in mainstream media. The reason Bryshere's story matters so much is because it allegedly involves two powerful men who are still largely protected by the industry. Diddy is finally facing consequences, but Will Smith is still being treated like Hollywood royalty despite all the rumors and allegations that have been swirling around him for decades. If 50 Cent really does include Bryshere in Part 2 and exposes what both Diddy and Will allegedly did to him, that could be the catalyst that finally brings accountability to everyone involved, not just Diddy. Towards the end of the documentary, Aubrey O'Day starts getting very emotional, talking about how she was contacted by a lawyer representing somebody who was filing a lawsuit against Diddy. Whoever this person was that filed this lawsuit against Diddy wrote an affidavit claiming that they saw something back in 2005 involving Aubrey being assaulted by Diddy and another person while she was unconscious. The fact that there were witnesses to these incidents and nobody said anything for years is what has people so angry. How many people knew what was happening and just stayed silent because Diddy had too much power and influence in the industry? This brings us back to Bryshere and why people are demanding that 50 Cent feature him in part 2 of this documentary series. Bryshere's story involves not just Diddy, but also Will Smith, which makes it even more explosive than anything that came out in part 1. If the allegations are true, this means two of the biggest names in entertainment were allegedly involved in victimizing a young man who came into the industry with dreams and talent, only to have everything taken from him. Jaguar Wright has been saying for years that both Will and Diddy are bisexual and do weird things in their houses, and that young men have left their houses screaming to get away from them during these so-called mentorship programs. She specifically mentioned that Meek Mill and Bryshere Gray both left that house screaming, and she said the only one that stayed was August Alsina, and she guessed he was really sick and needed the money, so he had no choice. The fact that Jaguar is naming specific names and specific incidents makes her claims harder to dismiss as just conspiracy theories or gossip. She's been consistent with her story for years, long before any of this Diddy stuff came out in the mainstream media. And now that the documentary has given other victims a platform, people are wondering why Bryshere is still being left out of the conversation when his story might be one of the most important ones to tell. The reason Bryshere's story matters so much is because it allegedly involves two powerful men who are still largely protected by the industry. Diddy is finally facing consequences, but Will Smith is still being treated like Hollywood royalty despite all the rumors and allegations that have been swirling around him for decades. If 50 Cent really does include Bryshere in part 2 and exposes what both Diddy and Will allegedly did to him, that could be the catalyst that finally brings accountability to everyone involved in these alleged crimes, not just Diddy. People are also pointing out that Bryshere's career completely fell apart after Empire ended. He went from being a rising star to struggling to make ends meet. His mental health has clearly suffered, as evidenced by that viral video. And according to Jaguar, his own mother sold him out for money, which means he didn't even have family protection when he needed it most. Diddy is a long way from redemption, and if the rumors about 50 Cent featuring Bryshere Gray in part 2 are true, then that might just be the final nail in the coffin for Diddy, and possibly for Will Smith too. As usual, people had their own thoughts on this explosive situation. One person said, "This has to stop. This young man is being victimized and nobody is helping. Where is his mentor, Will Smith?" Another said, "This kid needs a break. These young kids get in the industry with no support, just all about the money and fame." The demand for part 2 is getting louder every day, and people won't let this go until Bryshere gets the same platform Lil Rod and Aubrey got. His story deserves to be heard, and the people allegedly responsible deserve to be exposed. Will 50 Cent actually go through with it and risk going after someone as powerful as Will Smith, or will Hollywood's protection prove stronger than justice? So, what do you think about 50 Cent allegedly making a documentary specifically about Bryshere Gray and his experience? And do you really think Bryshere was assaulted by Diddy and Will Smith? This story keeps getting darker and even more complicated, and Star Savvy is bringing you every update as it unfolds. Don't miss what gets exposed next. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and turn on notifications so you never miss when we reveal the truth about what really happened.